Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to another Real Madrid review. Real Madrid 2, Real Sociedad nil. It is the final game of the season, and first of all, apologies for that not being a preview. I was quite caught up, and in fact, the Sevilla review literally dropped earlier today. So, apologies for that. I was quite caught up, like I said. So yeah, no preview, but we're back with the review, of course, to end the season off. It's not the end, because we will have the Club World Cup soon in the next few weeks, but for the season, it is the end, and it is also, I know I haven't talked about this yet, because since the last video, which was the Sevilla video, I didn't really want to speak too much about it, because I wanted to make, this video and another separate video to talk about it. But the farewell for the likes of Luka Modrić, Carlo Ancelotti, and Lucas Vázquez, let's not forget that as well. I think it's very important that we appreciate and we are grateful to Lucas Vázquez for what he has done. Also, Jesus Vallejo, obviously he didn't really take part, but he is leaving as well. I wouldn't say I'm grateful to him, but obviously, we will give him that farewell as well. Just wasn't ever a good signing to begin with. It's not entirely his fault that he was being paid a crap amount of money for doing absolutely nothing, because he just isn't good enough, to be honest. But enough of that said. This game, like I said in the Sevilla one, it doesn't really matter. It's a game where it was about the emotions, it wasn't about the game. If Real Madrid won, yes, you give a proper send-off to these legends. If we lost, it would have been a bad way to, send off these players and legends. But, at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Of course, it's good and it's nice to see that we have won. We've gotten the most amount of points we could have, considering, we already lost the league title. So, ever since that Barcelona game, we have, ensured that we've won every single game, which is a little bit too late. But, it is what it is, and now we talk about the players leaving. I want to maybe make a little bit more of a dedicated video to thank each player leaving, to be honest. But yeah, this game really just was not very meaningful. I mean, even you look at Real Sociedad starting 11, a lot of changes being made, a lot of maybe backup players coming in, second team players coming in. So yeah, let's talk about the goals. Again, it's gonna be a pretty short review, to be honest, because let's talk about the goals first. The first goal was scored by Mbappe. In fact, both goals were scored by him, which means he is going to win the Pichichi trophy, the top scorer. Unless Lewandowski, I don't even know if he's fit, but unless Lewandowski somehow scores 7 goals in a game, which isn't gonna happen, but that is Mbappe's. And penalty, he missed it. Was it a penalty? You can say it's harsh. To be honest, obviously the ball was flicked onto the arm of the defender. But for me, if you look at it closely, his arm is up in the air. Now, the reasoning as to why it might not be a penalty is it's natural human instinct. Your hand, you're not gonna expect your hand to be at the side like a statue the whole time. You're not gonna expect that. But what is expected is that or how do I put it? What happened was his arm was up in the air. Now, he didn't do it intentionally, but by the law of the rule book, that's a penalty. Now you can absolutely go in on the rules. Do I agree with the rule? I think it's very harsh. I think that you have to look at situations. I think if his arms are up in the air, or at least one arm is up in the air, because it's natural human instinct. Like, he's trying to block his face from getting hit, for example. Something like that, I think is okay. And in that instance, you could, sort of argue that, it's probably, unintentional and it's probably okay. But there isn't this unintentional, is it okay factor. Now they put, or the committee, I just can't get my words out. The committee, tells us that there is. But how are we supposed to decide whether it's intentional or unintentional? Because what the defender did in this case was deemed intentional, or was deemed as handball. But it might be unintentional. And if it's still given, does that mean that regardless of whether it's intentional or not, it's a penalty? Or does it mean that they still have that factor, or factorizing whether it's intentional or unintentional? Because if there isn't an element of whether it is intentional or unintentional, then every penalty that hits the hand is a penalty. But if there is that factor, an element that you have to decide, then what is that element that decides whether it's a penalty or not? And they aren't clear with it. They aren't clear on that aspect of handball. And no one knows, right? Realistically, no one understands how that works. But penalty was given, Mbappe missed, but on the rebound scored. And then the second goal, Vini Jr. does really well, makes that run, really smart pass, and Mbappe on his left foot, near post finish, actually a very, very nice finish to make it 2-0 and to get another goal for him as well. So, overall, that is pretty much the footballing side of the game done. We saw a lot of farewell, of course. Early on, before the match started, there was the tifo for, I think, Carlo Ancelotti and Luka Modrić. I was quite disappointed that Lucas Vázquez didn't get one, and look, I will talk more about this, but I think that we have to appreciate and be grateful to Lucas Vázquez for what he has done. So that was quite disappointing. And yeah, I mean, we can see it. There was very teary eyes from, I think, Carlo Ancelotti. I think Lucas Vázquez was quite emotional as well. I think Luka Modrić wasn't as teary in terms of he was gonna cry, but obviously he was emotional, right? But yeah, overall, it is the last game we will see from Luka Modrić. It is the last game we will see from Lucas Vázquez. It is the last game we will see managed by Carlo Ancelotti. In general, but for the other two, Modrić, I think, is still at the Club World Cup. He will still be part of that. So will Lucas Vázquez, if I'm not mistaken. But for all of them, it's been incredible for their contribution and services to the club. That dedication, that leadership. There's so many words you can use to describe Modrić, Vázquez, and even Carlo Ancelotti. I think you can't really group them together because being a player and being a manager is very different. But as players, for Modrić and Vázquez, they have always had that leadership. They've always provided that experience, that captain material player, and obviously the dedication. You don't hear complaints from them when they don't play, or for Lucas Vázquez, he's playing out of position. You don't hear complaints from him. For Carlo Ancelotti, that calmness, he's never put under much pressure apart from the last couple of months when things started going downhill and he was getting a little bit more agitated. But overall, this is a man who has delivered Real Madrid 3 Champions League trophies. Obviously, La Decima, and then the 2021-22, and last season as well. And I mean, so has Luka Modrić. Has delivered in the Zinedine Zidane days as well. Lucas Vázquez as well. He was moved by Zidane from a right winger to a right back. So you add in these elements, and the success that these players and Carlo Ancelotti has achieved, you can only end on a high. You can only end on a high. And I know we have had this sort of feeling this whole year, this whole season, that we have been frustrated, we've been angry, we've been upset. But when the season comes to an end, we start to realize that it's going to be the last game. It's going to be the last game we see Modrić play at the Bernabeu. The last game Lucas Vázquez plays at the Bernabeu. The last game Carlo Ancelotti manages at the Bernabeu and in general. So it's time to take that footballing factor out of it and sort of have that emotional factor and just appreciate what these legends have done for the club. I will be making a special, video for the farewell for these players and Carlo Ancelotti. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Hit that notification, subscribe to the channel on already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.